Hello. Today's daily learning targets are about finding the central idea and creating a summary for a close reading text, Hestia. For this part of the lesson, we are going to focus on central idea. Remember, that means the main point or points that the author wants the reader to know and take away from reading the text. For this, you're going to need to go to the Language Dive and Close Reading Guide for Hestia link. Click it and make a copy for yourself. You already read Hestia in your engaged learner text. This time, we're just going to learn a little bit more about her as we dive into the text. We already know that the gist of this text is about a Greek goddess, Hestia, who is also the goddess of the hearth. Now, we will participate in a language dive to determine how a sentence can offer clues to the central idea of a text. So in our first paragraph, it says, Hestia was the daughter of Cronus and Rhea. She was a Greek goddess of fire, specifically the domestic hearth, which was the area on which people had fire in their homes. Now we're just going to read this one sentence pulled out of the first paragraph. It says, she was the Greek goddess of fire, specifically the domestic hearth, which was the area on which people had fire in their homes. So if you look at this underlined piece of text, what does it tell us? Think about what you might think it is and write that down. Now, let's reread the whole sentence and we're going to just think about the non-underlined piece. It says she was the Greek goddess of fire, specifically the domestic hearth, which was an area on which people had fires in their homes. So the first part, or the non-underlined piece of the sentence, tells us that Hestia is the goddess of fire in the home. Missing an S. So both parts tell us information about the domestic hearth or about the area that's being described here. These chunks have the same meaning, even though the phrase on which separates them. And that's what we're going to focus on today. Let's look at the example below from The Lightning Thief. Here is the cover of The Lightning Thief, on which there is an illustration of. So the term on which tells us that they want the same type of information. They just want us to say it in words. So here we're going to think about what is on the cover of The Lightning Thief. What is the actual illustration or picture? Look at your cover and try to figure out the answer. So you should have on which there is an illustration of Percy standing on a statue of Poseidon in the water. This explains more about what the cover is, and it shows us in words what the illustration is. You can't tell by now, when you have on which or in which, it's just further explaining information that you know. Let's look at the next example. It says, The Lightning Thief is the book in which. So in which means We want more information about the topic that they already have. So, what is the lightning thief about? Type the answer that you think best fits. So once you're done, you're going to scroll down. Think about Hestia. Use this frame to talk about what happened in Hestia. So, Hestia is an informational text in which, what was it about? What happened? Once you type your answer to this box, you have completed your language dive. You should have seen how terms in which connects us to what the text is about. We are going to now further explore that in a close reading focusing on central idea. So if you need to pause here and reread the text to jog your memory, you're welcome to do that. But if you don't, we're going to keep going and dive into our central idea. So when we think about what this is about, if you have your answer for the sentence frame above, you should already have a huge idea on the central idea. The ideas are connected. We know that Hestia was important to the ancient Greeks because of the significance of fire to them. When we think about what this text was about, this is it right here. Hestia was important to the ancient Greeks because of the significance of fire to them. If you looked in your sentence frame above, your answer should have similar information about Hestia and domestic hearth and how they're important. What you're going to do next is take some time to work through the rest of your sheet using what you already know about sentence frames, what you already know about the central idea of this text, and you're going to look more closely at the text in order to understand how the central idea is conveyed through details. What you have below is some questions focused on paragraph 2, which reads, "Now in these early days, the hearth was seen as the most important and most sacred part of the dwelling. In fact, the hearth was held so sacred it was always built in the center of every home. It was a few feet in height and was built of stone. The fire was placed on top of it. The members of the family would gather around this fire, and the head of the house would take the place of honor nearest the hearth. Here, prayers were said." Then we have a few questions that follow about key vocabulary, and then the details that convey the central idea. Remember, the central idea is already listed above. Once you finish that, you're going to move on to the next paragraph, which reads, "In Grecian cities, there was a common hall called the Prytaneum, in which the members of the government had their meals. In the common hall was a public hearth called the Hestia after the goddess Hestia. The Hestia fire was where the meals for the members of the government were prepared. The goddess Hestia was generally represented standing, as she always appears fully draped. Her facial expression is serene but serious." After you read that paragraph, you have more questions talking about the vocabulary that you found there and details that support or convey the central idea. Keep in mind, once again, your central idea is listed above. Once you are finished, you're going to move on to the next piece of your work time activity. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact your teacher and ask.